Okay. I have no idea if this is working now. This is we're not streaming. This says we are streaming. Okay. I think I'm live. Oh my gosh. Okay, I think I'm finally live. That was a nightmare. Um, we used to have somebody who set some of this stuff up for us, and we he left, and we got a new employee. I'm gonna go close my door. I'm also on the Wi-Fi because it's been a minute and a week and a month and a year in this day and week. Um, Yay! There's a person here. Johannes has made it to my crazy RockSim life. I have nonsense. Okay, that was a mess. So yeah, so somebody used to schedule these ahead of time, and then we just joined the schedule, and nobody had it scheduled because we have a new employee, and it's all messed up. And then I scheduled it, and then I joined it, but then I accidentally double clicked, and then it ended, and then everything fell apart from there. So yes, uh, so I am here. It says 5 people are watching, so yay! Welcome to a belated RockSim Live. I am Michelle. I am the office manager here at Apogee, and Tim is taking a trip this week to visit his family in Florida, and so I am your RockSim Live person. Um, I don't know about all of you, but it has been a very long week. And everybody I know is just tired and worn out and not functioning fully. And that goes for me too. So, um, let me know. Okay. The only one who's commented so far is Johannes. So let me know if anything's wrong. Hopefully you can hear me. Yay, Fat Bank's here. Good. Um, Sorry for all the confusion. But we're up and we're live. And so for today, if you have any questions for me to answer in about RockSim, Launch Visualizer, rockets in general, life in general, because like I said, it's been a week, we will discuss those today and hopefully get your questions answered. I do have 2 things that we can talk about if nobody has any questions. So yes. Okay. More people are. Hello, 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 everybody. Yay. I'm so glad you made it to my goofy RockSim Live. Um, so the first question that I have for today was a question that was emailed in from a teacher. Amy Kiesicker wrote in and says, I'm looking for a way to change the impulse of an engine. My students are using a Hypertech K240, the impulse in RockSim is slightly higher than the impulse shown in the thrustcurve.org. Can you please advise? Thanks. So there's a couple parts to that question. So I have, I'm going to switch screens here to show you my screen. And then I'm going to open up my browser, one of my browsers. So the first thing I did was kind of look at what Amy was talking about. So uh, I go to, let's see, Thrust Curve. So thrustcurve.org, if you're ever looking for motor files, it's kind of one of the best places to get motor files for. They house a lot. Basically, they're kind of like the database of motor files. Sorry. And so you can go to thrustcurve.org, and then if you're looking for a motor file, we have tried to keep RockSim up to date. It was up to date as of when 10 came out, and it should have like 99% of the motors. There's been a couple that have come out since then, and I think we found like one that's missing. We would literally went through the NAR, CAR, Triple E master list, and all of those are in here. So it's some of these missing motors are kind of strange, but But yeah, so hopefully it should just be a couple of brand new ones if you need to add them, or if you need to research. Hypertech motors are funny. When the people made them, some of the files are a little messed up. But so Amy asked about a K240. So you would just come to this corner here, type in a K240, and you'll see there's actually two results here. There's a Hypertech one and there's a RAT one. So she's asking about the Hypertech. So I went here to the Hypertech page to see, you know, what it says here versus what's in RockSim. And so there's a couple ways to look at motors. RockSim actually comes with a program called Engine Edit. So instead of using, you can use RockSim to like kind of look at the motor, but the real nitty gritty details are better in Engine Edit. So, and that comes bundled with RockSim. So if you have RockSim, you have Engine Edit. So in your RockSim folder, you'll have a file called Engine Edit. If you're on Windows, I think it might be buried another level deep, but called Engine Edit. So this is Engine Edit. This is a program for if you make your own motors from home, at home, or if you buy a motor that isn't in RockSim yet or something, or if you want to just like play with motors and see kind of what would happen, this is the program to use. So the K240 is already, she says, even in the email, it's already in RockSim. So we are going to open up the RockSim file, and I've already opened this up, so it's kind of easy to get to. So this is the K240. Oh, this is actually, this is not what I want. This is the one I downloaded. Okay, so the one that comes in RockSim is hiding in this data folder, and we know it's a Hypertech. So we can open that up. And the K240 is actually at the bottom because it was probably missing from the list. And then when we went and updated all the motor files, we added it. Oh my gosh. So there's the K240. And so if we look at Engine Edit and we look at the Hypertech data on thrust curve, you can see here, so right away, we've got 552 millimeters versus 819. The total mass, 807 versus 859, 1859. I know with hybrid motors, the weights and things can get a little hinky because you don't just have, a regular motor, you just have the motor. But a hybrid motor, you've got like a nitrous oxide tank attached to it, and there's different things. So I think they kind of just guessed. In fact, if you look down here on thrust curve, there's actual notes that the guy Mark Klosch, is a good German name, made. He says the file he added is the best estimate based on weights. And he even says the mass is different, the length is different, but the thrust time data is the same. So sometimes things differ based on, like if you're using a different type of tank or a different size of tank maybe or something. So those ones could be explained away. But then when we're looking at, say, the average thrust here is the 240 newtons, and this says 213 newtons. The initial thrust is 281, total impulse is 1292, 1440. So how do we know which one's right? Well, so this is where things get kind of hinky. So I went to the actual Hypertech website to see what they have for the K240, and they have totally different data. So they have their total impulse is 1285 versus 1440 versus 1292. So I don't know. And then the other thing you can look at on thrust curve, if you look at the where is it on here? Somewhere on here, it might be because I'm on the mobile. You can actually pull up the actual data, the raw data of the motor. So this is also on thrust curve of this. So there's the raw data. And if you, so that's all of that. And if you look here, it will tell you, so they have a little line that shows accuracy of the data file. So the data files on thrust curve, can be made by anybody. You could make a motor data file. I could make one. The manufacturer can. So anybody can. So they may not be right. Or in this case, like with hybrids, things can be different. So they may be right for this person, but not for this person. So this is one of the problems with the motor files. It's we've talked about before. RockSim is only as good as the data you put in. So um, it yeah, don't make fun of me yawning. It's Friday afternoon. I know you got me going again. Okay. So there's a line that says accuracy of the data file. So all motors that are commercially available are certified by either the National Association of Rocketry, the Canadian Association of Rocketry, or AAA Rocketry Association. They all certify motors, and so what they do, I think. I'm not super familiar with the testing process, but they run a bunch of tests, and then they come up with kind of the average thrust, the peak kind of thrust, and they kind of do a bunch of tests because motors always have a little bit of variance in them, just how well the mix was, how if there were any air bubbles or things. So they run a bunch of tests and they sort of say this is the official data for this motor, um, and that kind of becomes the record. um, we generally in RockSim use that data. So if you there are definitely some like Aerotech motors that have come up that Aerotech says this is the data for this motor, and then the NAR will say no, this is the data for this motor. And so you will have the official certification data and the manufacturer saying completely different. I mean, they're usually not too bad, but different data for the same motor. And basically there's enough variance and things that just people use what they want. um, so for RockSim, we try to use the certified data just because that was, we know that was tested in a lab, that, and then that's not to say that manufacturers, their data isn't accurate, but we don't know how they come up with that data, but we know how the certified data gets kind of come up with. So we use that. But especially in the last year or two, they've stopped posting. So the AAA especially has started certifying motors, and they don't post their certification data on their site, the details of it, which frustrates people like us and people like you who are using the software and trying to get accurate motor data. So sometimes we have to use the thrust curve data or whatever. So anyways, that was a long rant about motors. So the accuracy of the data file. So this will tell you that this file that Mark made, these are his specs, and this is what the NAR, CAR, whoever certified this, I think it's AAA in this case, certified it. This is what their data says. And then it gives you the variance. So the length is off by 33%. The diameter, the length is off by this. Um, I'm assuming for hybrid motors that has more to do with like nitrous tanks and things. I don't know anything about hybrid motors really, because I don't know how, standard non-hybrid motors, you wouldn't have a variance in diameter. I mean, you can't. The length can vary because it depends on what you're measuring from. Do you include the closures on the end? Do you not include the closures on the nozzle or whatever? So sometimes those can vary a little bit. But propellant weight, total weight could vary by, again, the tanks and things on there. But propellant weight shouldn't really vary by 30%, the same amount of propellant. Maybe for a hybrid, they count the nitrous gas, although I can't imagine gas weighs 300 grams, but maybe. Um, so anyways, here's the average thrust. This file says 225, this is 240. Ours is 213. So here's where it gets funny to me. So this is the data that's pulled from Mark's file. Okay, so I download this file. So this is the file that's coming from thrust curve. So now we're going to open up this file. So remember this 213, 328. So 213 versus 225. When I open this file, you will see look at that, 213, not 225. So I don't know what's going on here, how it says this file has an average thrust of 225 when I pull it into thrust curve, it literally says 213. These data, but the peak thrust matches. And in this case, the total impulse matches. But let's go back to that other one because now I'm second guessing myself. What am I doing? Hypertech. I'm going really fast here for moving for around in there. 338, 1449. So this is actually what is here for this thrust curve. So this data is pulled, okay, that's what it is. This data is pulled from the certified data. That's why. So that's why it varies from RockSim to thrust curve to the file from thrust curve, is because they're using the certification data. So again, a little bit of a, put on your thinking cap and your magnifying glass and trying to figure out how that works. You guys are funny today. So then Amy's question was, can you modify it? Because what I was going to say was, well, if thrust curve is different, then your easiest option would just be to download it from thrust curve. The one question then is, this thrust curve is different than certification data, and the certification data is different than the hypertech data. Which one is right? Who really knows? So if you find a file, like if you find that RockSim, or say you download a motor file and it's not correct, but you find a correct one, you can just download like I just did. You just download, you can click download and then load it into RockSim. That's super easy to do in RockSim. You just go up to File, Import Engine Files, and you point it to the file we just downloaded. Open. So that imports it, and then this, you move it to the right side to activate it, and then now I will have two Hypertech K240s in my thing, and then it's loaded in. So it's really easy to download a file if you find the correct one and you want to add it, or a motor that, say, one of the new motors that just came out that hasn't been in RockSim yet. You can go here and download it super fast. And that went really fast. So if you don't remember how to do that, we actually have a video tutorial on our website. So if you go to the Apogee website and you go to How To and Guides, Software, and RockSim video tutorials, this will take you to our video tutorials page, and for your convenience, importing the motors is bolded. So it's actually, if you scroll down, it's number 31, but this shows you how to do it with the built-in installer. You don't have to go to thrust curve. You can actually do it in RockSim too. I always go to thrust curve. I forget that it's in RockSim. Plus I like to look at kind of some of the stuff too. But it's the same deal, just downloading. So importing engine files, downloading from thrust curve, and installing. That's what we just did. These all work, but this is the quickest way for that. But so her question was, can you modify the file in RockSim? And so what we would need, and this is where we run into problems, because we can check our file. I don't know if this data might be, this is Mark's file. So this is going to match RockSim. So what you would need is, you need this data graph, or the raw data points from the certification paperwork. So let's just try going. If it's old enough, you can get to it from the NAR website, even if the NAR didn't certify it. But if it's newer and it's certified by Cicerone, you cannot get that information. It's most of the motors have it on their actual packaging. It's really tiny, but it's there. So I'm at nar.org, National Association of Rocketry.org, and then rocket motor information, certified motors. So this is a list of all the certified motors, and you'll see CAR, NAR, TRA, certified motor list. It's been updated as of January 9th, so that's super new. And then the NAR certified motor list. So this one is just a PDF, I think, or not even a whatever. So it explains what everything means, and then it has the list of motors. So I'm going to do K240. So here, you'll notice this one doesn't have a link like some of those other ones. It was certified by AAA. So the NAR doesn't have the certification information. And you'll see 81 millimeters. That's what we were seeing as the original certification data on the here. So but this is all you can pull from here. So you see how some of these are blue. If you click on that, so look, we can see that and our raw data, because that's what we need. We need to know the thrust over this time period to get this right. And so if you cannot find that information, then you technically can't build the motor file and thrust curve, or sorry, an engine edit, because it needs the thrust curve, because you can say that you can have two motors that have the same total impulse, but the burn time might be 2 seconds on one and 6 seconds on the other. So what that means is the one that has 2 seconds is going to be like a really big, fast, powerful whoosh, to get to that peak, that total impulse. It's got to get all that power out in 2 seconds. Whereas the other motor has 6 seconds to get that total impulse out. So it's a little bit slower. So it's like taking your car from 0 to 60, like they both get from 0 to 60 miles per hour, or kilometers per hour. But the time is different. So, and then that's how much, gas you're using up, and things like that. So without that data, RockSim doesn't know, and how that thrust goes, because it's not constant. Without that data, RockSim really just doesn't know how that works. So it's like saying, here's a car that goes 0 to 60. But we won't tell you the shape. We won't tell you how long it takes or whatever. You don't have a lot of context. So yeah, so finding the correct data, or the data that this 81 millimeters is based on, I'm not sure if that's even possible, honestly, because Hypertext sure doesn't have it. This is Hypertext super helpful website. This is all they have. So they just have, again, the total, like the top, the peak numbers. We can try going to AAA.org. So this is the AAA website. And no, not records. I always have trouble. They just redid their website, and so I don't remember where so this is the combined motor list, which I think is the exact same PDF thing that was on the, and you can't get to it unless you're a AAA member, which I'm not. So that's even worse, like behind a paywall, man. So you can only do so much with your motor, because of, you have to have that data. So if you have those, so let's say we have the data, or if we want to check this file. So I assume this is Mark's data. So these are your data points, and this is time and thrust. So in Engine Edit, you can actually go up to View Time Ordered Data, and then so these are your times, and this is your thrust. And so we got 1.131, 0.396, 2.78. So this RockSim file, motor file, is using this data. There are ways there's a way in the video tutorials in RockSim, you can actually use this picture and make the motor file too. So there's a couple different ways. I'm a data geek and not a graphic person, so like if I were to make it, I would just use these data points to do it in there, and then once you have it, you'd save it and it would go here. So you can edit these things, 81 millimeters, for example, because that's what the certified one was. And save. Whoops, save. If I close this, it might ask me if I want to save. Yeah. So that's sort of how you edit motor files. That wasn't really helpful because we couldn't find the actual data. So it is possible to do. The other thing, which might be cleaner and easier, would be to actually make a new motor file for something like that and then importing it. Um, and I don't know if I closed that or it crashed. I've crashed because I was hovering all over the windows. Yeah, so that was sort of a non-answer for Amy about how to make motor files or how to edit motor files, but it is possible. You just have to have access to the data. But also, it's a good thing to check, because she was saying that RockSim didn't match thrust curve, um, but thrust curve is using that the stuff it didn't match is this certified data. So if your motor matches the certified data, then yes, you definitely want to change it. If your motor matches Mark's data, then you know you have that there. You do also have, so this is Mark's data. There is a second motor file from 2006. So let's just look at that one real quick and see. Since I closed that, I must have closed it because it didn't give me a crash log. So we're going to engine edit, and we're going to open the other Hypertech one that I just downloaded. So, and here, this is where notes are. So this is from data from 1998. So this one has the diameter of 81 millimeters and the length 500, so 552. So in Amy's case, there's a motor file that matches that stuff. Assuming that's what she needs, she could go download the 2006 version and use that, and that will, or at least some of that. I still have 213 average thrust, and that's 240. So maybe not. It's kind of a weird mixed version. Total impulse 1440. Well, I don't know, Amy. I don't know. Again, only as good as the data you have. So I would say worst case scenario, if you have a situation like this and you can't find the data, reach out to Hypertech and see. I have no idea who is Hypertech or if there are people behind it. I mean, I assume there's people because people can still get motors, but reach out to the manufacturer and say, hey, I'm trying to do RockSim. I cannot find a correct motor file anywhere. Do you have one that reflects the 81 millimeter diameter, 240 Newton thrust? And they might or they might not. They might say, oh, actually, like, we think that this motor data is right. But yeah, try reaching out. Same with kit files if you can't find them. Try going to the manufacturer and just saying, hey, like, do you have these? A lot of times they do. They just don't have a way to post them. A lot of manufacturers don't have the time or the energy to send stuff to like Thrust Curve or Rocket Reviews, which is where kit files are stored a lot of times, or send them to us, and we'll incorporate stuff into our. I have a whole email folder full of the changes that we need to do for the next update to RockSim, with corrections to kit files, adding new motors, things like that. So if you ever find anything, Sydney, one of our customers, sent me something that was wrong, that I have stored for next time. So we want RockSim to be as accurate as possible too, but we also don't have the manpower to like dig in and figure out what the actual data for the K240 is. So it's okay. I have not looked at one of your comments since you started making fun of me about yawning. So I'll go through here real quick. Yeah, yeah. Apparently you're all in your pajamas today or things. Um, yeah, yeah. Supplying motors in general, I think. Um, so we just finally got some of the 29 millimeters back in stock, a very small amount briefly. But depending on what size you're looking at, if you haven't looked at Klima, they've got some great motors, and their factory where they make them is awesome. Tim went and visited and saw it. It was really cool. Um, yeah, let's see. Carlos asks, sometimes I buy aftermarket upgrade kits that use 1/8 inch Baltic birch plywood with through the wall fin tabs. use RockSim to model any kit this way. So Carlos, I'm not sure what your actual question is. So are you saying you're taking a kit that doesn't normally have through the wall fins and then does? Or it's a kit that like has up like thicker or different wood material? I'm not sure what's different from about it being aftermarket with the Baltic birch. So if you can give me a little more context, I can definitely, because that should be an easy fix if it's one of those questions like how do you take a non through the wall kit and make it through the wall, or how do you swap out the fin material or something. And I can show you that in a second too. Talking about making our own motors because they're hard to get. It's one way to do it. It's also, you're messing with things, so be careful, and make sure you do everything legally. Um, yeah, he's talking about okay, using the actual thrust curve, the image, how to do that. So yeah. So I'm trying, and then Pat Bank says I'm trying to add PVC for a nose cone. I don't see a custom option. Um, yes, Michelle can. Terry says Michelle can. So adding, okay, so you need to add a material. I can sort of tell you. You'll have to do a little research, but how to add a material to RockSim. So say you design a rocket and it's made out of something, especially if you take stuff that's like around your house, you go to the hardware store and you find a PVC tube or some cool paper towel tube or something that's not a normal, it's not Baltic birch, it's not balsa wood or whatever, and you need to make a part out of it in RockSim. So to add materials to the database, the thing you're gonna need to know is the density. If you don't know the density, again, RockSim will only be as good as the data you put in. Oops. So the materials in RockSim go to a part, and you choose balsa, cardstock, cardboard, plywood. This is where it's pulling from. So this is a list of every material that's in RockSim. So each material then has a density. So you have the units and then the density of it. Fixed dimension, I don't even know why that's there. All of them are none. Fixed dimension in units, again, we don't use that, so it doesn't matter. Fixed dimension value. I assume those had a purpose at one point, but now they do not. Rocketry use, 1. So in computer code, if you know your ones and zeros, 1 means active. If it's a 0, then it means it's not active. Why would you have a 0? I don't really know, again, why that was. This is all like, this is original RockSim like kind of logic here. So basically anything you put in here should have a 1. And then this is interesting. This used to not be ones and zeros. This was checkboxes, and it looks like in one of the last updates they just did ones and zeros. I'll have to let them know. So then your material, you will edit it to say which parts you want to use it on. So for example, you wouldn't probably have a metal body tube. You could, but you probably would. So you could turn body tubes off because if you go to your when you're making a new part and you put that drop down list. I mean, if you had every single one of these in that drop down list, it would be crazy, and it may even go off the page. You don't make fins out of nylon webbing or parachute material. So you can, so depending on your material, you can turn it on or off. So things like woods you would use for fins, you might use for nose cones, centering rings, but you wouldn't use wood for shot cord material or parachute material, so you turn that off. So there's just all the different kind of types of things. So if you ever need to edit it, you click a line and click edit. There's our checkboxes. And that's where you can edit an existing one. So say you pick up material that's in here and you discover that the density probably just isn't right. I have no idea where all these densities came from. A million years ago, somebody must have looked this up. But things have different densities. You can have 1/4 inch plywood that's like pretty dense or not so dense. Balsa wood. We have problems laser cutting because we'll literally get a soft piece and a hard piece, and trying to use the same settings, the soft piece ends up burned and the hard piece doesn't even cut all the way through. So even the same 1/8 inch balsa wood, anything that has like the grain or is like a natural material can vary. Um, hard things, PVC probably has the same density no matter what. I don't really know. There's a variation in but maybe the plastics have different densities, the different types of like chemicals. I don't know. So once you're done editing, you can click done. And then if you need to add a new one, so like Fat Bank wants to add his PVC, so you can see there is PVC in here. Um, it has a density of 81.2 pounds per foot squared. Is that the density of PVC? I have zero idea. So that's going to be your kind of problem with adding materials is that. Um, so then you can click edit. So it's turned on for rocketry use. You can use it for body tube fin set. So see, it's not checked for nose cone. So we can check it for nose cone. And now, if I build my rocket and I choose a nose cone and make my own, now PVC is in the list. So that might have answered your question. Super easy, Fat Bank. Or if it's not in there or that PVC isn't right, then you can edit database materials and click add new. And so you can use your, maybe there's a brand name. So it's like Bob's PVC, and it has a density of, I have no idea. What was that one? It was 81.2. Maybe this one only has like 52.2. So none inches. We'll just leave this all. So we turn it on for rocketry use and we turn it on for nose cone. So now I've added my nose cone material. And look, Bob's PVC. Um, so yeah, and if you remember, if you were a long time RockSim user, there used to be a custom in here, but custom was literally like nothing. So if you add a material to the database and it has no density, RockSim doesn't know what to do with it. It breaks RockSim's brain, basically. And so bad things happen if it doesn't know how to calculate the density. So yeah, and without any dimensions, it doesn't change anything because it doesn't have any wall thickness or whatever. So there we go. So now if I change my material to Bob's PVC, you'll notice that my mass is now 0.1 pounds. But if I go to regular PVC, my mass is 0.16 pounds. So that's how you can add the material. If you aren't exactly sure on the density, you could possibly like play the game of like guess, build your nose cone, see if the mass is right. If it's not quite, go back and kind of tweak the density. That's a really tedious way to do that, but it's one way if you just don't have the density of something. I would say Google to start, Google it, and then so you have a starting point, and then kind of work your way down. And then just be aware, like I said, that some materials don't have a consistent density. So you may dial in and you're like, oh, my balsa wood fins, like it's perfect. And then you buy a new batch of balsa wood, and guess what? It doesn't match because now you've got hard versus soft. So yeah, but it's pretty easy to add materials in there as long as you know the density for that. So let's see. Gosh, you guys are very chatty. Says look around the web for the weight per cc and use that on a micrometer. Yeah, so Carlos saying is kind of googling it. Or find the other thing he suggested, which I said before too, is if you need to find a manufacturer part that's similar, and then you can kind of tweak that from there too and add it. And then that doesn't help with like if you're making stuff out of PVC or making stuff out of a material and making a bunch of different parts, it's not really a great way to do it. But if you just have like a one-off, like you got a pre-manufactured kit or somebody gave you something and it's just a one-time thing, I probably wouldn't bother trying to figure out the density and like all that. I would just find pull up a nose cone, say it's a 4-inch nose cone. So I pull up the 4-inch nose cone from Aerotech, tweak it, and then just do a mass override and change the mass of the part to match for a one-off thing. That's going to be faster than trying to figure out. Unless you're like a total data geek, and I'm a total data geek, and I wouldn't probably get to the density level unless I was going to be like, say I got a whole bunch of wood and I was going to make a whole bunch of things out of this wood, and needed to put the density in. But I wouldn't probably for like um, just a one-off thing. So yeah, you guys are so smart. You're answering the questions before I got to them. So Terry said do a mass override for that too. Yeah, John Coker. If you guys were looking at the thrust curve, John Coker, he makes a ton. He actually runs thrustcurve.org. So if you see his name on a lot of files, that's why he actually is the host of it. So let's see. So don't hate on my dog, Carlos. She's my screensaver. So um, yeah, let's see. Whoops, that's pretty cool. You guys are talking about all your rockets that you're doing. Yeah, boss is a pain sometimes. You guys are talking about kit bashing. Yeah, sometimes, if you kids are funny today, sorry. I'm super scattered. Um oh, buying, commercially available kit. Like some people love that. It's great. It's out of the box. You've got everything you need. Some people take kits and then they, modify them. Some people take kits and then they kit bash. So they take a piece of this kit, a piece of this kit, put it together. And then there's people who like scratch build everything. um, there's a place for everybody in the hobby, I think. And it's why we supply parts and kits because there's people who do all of that. So let's see. Yeah. So Johannes is talking about he made some motor files for TSP. I don't know who TSP is. I've not heard of them. They must be kind of new to the market in Europe. I used to know all the European dealers and things, and that's changed a lot. But Johannes, if you feel like they're good files, you can actually send them to Thrust Curve. I don't know if they're commercially available motors. John should be able to put them up for you. Let's see. You said a D. Let's go see. Maybe there are some there. Let's see. He said F35. So these are going to be the same as like Aerotech has these motors too.